Hey guys, thank you for joining me in my living room again. So we're going to talk about grace and foolishness. Listen, grace is the person Jesus Christ. John said it this way: the law was given by Moses, but grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. Listen, an object is given, but grace is the person Jesus Christ, like coming into a room. I'm excited because John even says out of his fullness is grace upon grace. And so grace is the unmerited favor of God, undeserved favor of God in your life. It's man, you and I don't deserve it. It's so excellent. And then we want to talk today about foolishness. And the disciples really had some moments of foolishness. And I think about the time when they're rejected by some of the city, and they said, "Hey, Jesus, let's call down fire upon this city." And he says, "You don't even know what spirit you're of." See, grace came to bring life, and life more abundantly. Where the Spirit of the Lord, there's freedom. And so they didn't understand. They really didn't understand grace, and their foolishness kind of muddied the water of grace. Now, what do I mean? Have you seen? I saw the movie The Lion King, and in the movie, little Simba, he's a small lion, and he looks into the water, and he sees the reflection of his father. And this is one of those moments I'm like, yes, this is just like how we can look into the Word of God and see the reflection of Jesus, and as He is, so are we in this world. And when I saw that moment, I thought, this is a picture of us and the Father. And so sometimes, I don't know if you've ever seen this, but sometimes the water can be so muddy, or there could be so much wind that you can't even see your reflection clearly in the water. And that's what foolishness does, is it muddies or it dilutes the water. Now, Jesus didn't reject the disciples. He didn't distance himself from the disciples. Think about some of the disciples and their foolishness. They didn't want children coming to Jesus. Come on, man. Jesus said, "Let the children come to me." They were keeping parents to keep their kids away. Listen, Jesus is all about children. Grace is all about kids. And so they just had some foolish moments. Think about Judas. I mean, he's stealing money, and listen, Jesus didn't distance himself from his disciples. And so this is what grace does, is it actually empowers disciples even when our foolishness dilutes the reflection of his grace. Man, this is powerful. Grace is so powerful that it doesn't reject our foolishness, but let me tell you this, it does empower us to lay foolishness aside. And so the disciples began to become more and more aware of grace. And so they were learning about it. It wasn't just anymore a picture of grace. There's a moment where in Matthew 16, Jesus says, "Hey, who do the people say I am?" And the disciples start saying, "Listen, the people around us are saying that you're Elijah. And the people around us are saying, some say John the Baptist. And some say Jeremiah or one of the prophets." And then in verse 15 of Matthew chapter 16, he says, "But who do you say that I am?" So here's some people that had a reflection and were in love with the reflection of Jesus. In other words, his works or the things that he was doing, but they didn't know who he was. Sometimes I think people can go to church, and I think on Sunday mornings, or even just listening to a good teacher online, you get the reflection of Jesus. But do you necessarily know who he is? Do you know him? Do you know his heart and his character and his love for you? And so Jesus asked the question, well, who do you say I am? And Peter says it. And Peter says this: "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." And Jesus said, "Blessed are you, Simon, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father who is in heaven. And I tell you, you are Peter, and on this rock I'll build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it." So Jesus gives Peter an identity. And the reason that Peter could find his identity was because he didn't look at the reflection of Jesus. He knew the identity and the character of Jesus. This is important for us. As believers, it's one thing to just get into the Word and go, okay, well, that's what he looks like, but to actually know him and that he's for you. So you can read about characters in the Bible and say, wow, he really loves them. But it's really important for you to look at Jesus and say he really loves you. He really loves you. I like to say he really loves me, and that grace is for me, and that grace is for you. And so just because grace is revealed and given doesn't mean it's aggressively received by everyone. And so there were people that thought, well, maybe he's Elijah, or maybe he's Jeremiah, or maybe he's John the Baptist. They didn't know that he was the Son of God. And that's revealed to Peter by the Father. So I remember going to prom. Then prom was, I was 18 years old, and my wife, we were dating at the time, and I invited her to prom. And listen, there's this beautiful, it's this ballroom, and there's, just the lights are just right, and she comes out in this beautiful dress, and she looks amazing, and I've got the big old lovebird eyes, and I'm just, the music's just right, and we're dancing, and it's this perfect moment, right? And I think that sometimes people are looking for that perfect moment with Jesus, and certainly there are moments of Jesus that we just, especially when we first get saved, it's like, man, we are just madly in love with Jesus. And I use this illustration about prom because there have been moments where we've had that kind of setup in our marriage where we can have some time to dance together and to just look in each other's eyes, and the music's right, and she's wearing the perfect dress. But guys, when we got married, there were moments where we had children, and all of a sudden there's a lot thrown at us. And so that love becomes sacrificial. And I want you to know that Jesus sacrificed on your behalf and loved you in your worst moment. Why do I say that? Because foolishness will come along, and you need to know how much you're loved. And you're going to grow in that love. Just like when I was a teenager, I thought I loved my wife, but there was some sacrificial moments where, guys, having 3 children and not having as much time together, and if I only felt loved when the music was playing and she was wearing the perfect dress, then it would be very difficult to feel that emotion or to say that we're in love 23 years later. And guys, we are greatly in love today, 23 years later. Now, I'm telling you this because some people go to church on Sunday and they're looking for the perfect music. They're looking for the perfect church. They're looking for the perfect sermon. And I think sometimes that they are just looking at a reflection of Jesus and not getting to know how much there's love. And guys, when you walk with Jesus, there's some sacrifice of just doing life with him. He's going to ask you to do some things that are sacrificial on your behalf. Oh, Brandon, it's all about grace. We need to just rest. Well, again, watch last week's video, because the prodigal son, he had grace, he had all the inheritance, and he did not want to work in the fields or at his father's house. He took no responsibility, and he left the kingdom or the fields and the house and took and squandered all that money. He was still a son. He was still loved. Listen, just because you're loved doesn't mean you're trusted. Oh, Brandon, you're going down a path here that's scary. Well, I want you to understand this. When you have kids, you can trust them with certain things. My wife bought a new car. That car can go 130, 140 miles an hour. And she has an app that could actually change the speed limit to only go up to a certain amount. And when she entrusted our son to drive the car, she kept the cap at 80 miles an hour. Well, my son didn't know, and he actually was trying to show a friend how fast it could go, and he thought he broke the car. So listen, Jesus is entrusting you more and more. He's going to give you, the Bible says that to Peter, he says, I'm going to give you the keys to, it says, I'll give you the keys to the kingdom of heaven. I will give you the keys. Listen, keys represent responsibility. And the Father wants to give you keys and responsibility for his kingdom. And with that responsibility, listen, he trusts you more and more. As you love people, as you are precious or careful in handling and loving people, he will trust you with more. And that's good news. Foolishness says, I just abandon people. Foolishness says, I have no responsibility or keys, and I'm just going to spend my money on harlots and go spend my money and leave my Father's house. And so, guys, grace empowers us to live a life that we're less and less foolish. The disciples were growing up. They were becoming less and less foolish. And Peter said, listen, I know you to be the Son of God. And Jesus was entrusting him. He actually said, you are the rock. Now, this is the Peter that's about to deny Jesus 3 times. How foolish can you be to deny Jesus 3 times? And he does this because he's in a moment of fear, but Jesus is constantly supplying grace. And I just want to encourage you, just because there's moments of foolishness doesn't mean the grace stops supplying. We can come boldly before the throne of grace. He knows what we have gone through. He knows the temptation you're going through. He has been a man on this earth. He understands. He's not giving you the temptation, but he is with you during the trials and the tribulations. And so I just want to encourage you. One more thing. Some people fall in love with the reflection and not Jesus Christ. And I just want to encourage you, fall in love with Jesus. Don't let it be some teacher's understanding of Jesus. Don't let it be my understanding of Jesus. Don't let it be your favorite online teacher's understanding of Jesus. Fall in love with him himself. Ask him what he thinks about you. Ask him what he thinks about the people around you that he's entrusted you with, and hear his heart. I hope this is encouraging to you. Listen, grace and foolishness, grace trumps foolishness every single time. I love you guys. If you have any questions, go ahead and comment below. Also, share the video. Guys, we're moving up north, and so go to graceforeternity.com. You'll see more details. Have a great week.